Okay, we'll take this next caller. Caller, welcome to the show. Please tell us your name, where you're calling from.
Good morning, William Rabbi Singer. This is Jared calling back. How's everybody?
Hey, Jared, how are you, man?
Baruch Hashem.
Doing well. Baruch Hashem, everything's good.
Man.
I'm calling because sometimes people, possibly most notably Christians, when they look into, messianic studies from the Jewish perspective, they'll sometimes bring up figures from the past, former Jewish messianic claimants like Bar Kokhba, who was from the 2nd century, and Shabtai Tzvi, who was from the 1600s. People that had large followings, including sages, like, for example, Bar Kokhba from the 2nd century seemed to have an endorsement from Rabbi Akiva himself. So sometimes I think people, again, most notably Christians, will look at figures like this and it seems like the Jews, maybe, again, the old claim that they maybe just don't have it together when it comes to the whole idea of the Messiah, being that it's possible that they could be misled by people who seemingly would seem at the time to be the Messiah, however they turn up not to be.
This conversation between Christians and Jews occurred many times in history, and there's one such conversation that took place roughly a century ago between a rabbi and an Orthodox priest who were stuck together on a train cab as they were on a long journey. And the priest, this is not a joke, like there's a priest and a rabbi. So the priest asked the rabbi, tell me, your rabbis going back to the 2nd century, they believe that Bar Kokhba was the Messiah. Bar Kokhba was a person who led a revolt against the Romans not long after the temple was destroyed. The temple was destroyed Herod's temple was destroyed in 70, and the Bar Kokhba revolt took place from 132 to 135, so it's only 6 decades later. So the priest asked the rabbi, isn't it true that if we go back, there were many illustrious rabbis who believed that this Bar Kokhba was in fact the Messiah? So isn't it clear that the rabbis can't be depended on to decide who's the Messiah, who's not? They were clearly wrong about Bar Kokhba. And the rabbi turned to the priest and said, well, tell me, how do you know that Bar Kokhba was not the Messiah? And the priest looked at him incredulously and asked him, what are you talking about? Bar Kokhba, the Messiah? He couldn't be the Messiah. He was killed by the Romans without accomplishing anything. The rabbi just stared at him, and the priest finally got it. That's exactly why we don't accept Jesus as the Messiah. It's not because we don't like his nose or his hairdo. It's because he was killed by the Romans without accomplishing any of the messianic prophecies. Again, the reason why Christians reject Bar Kokhba as the Messiah is the reason why Jews reject Jesus as the Messiah. This happened. I'm not going to say which missionary. Just let's say he still remains a dear friend of mine. He's a messianic leader. Doesn't make a difference who it is. He and I were having a conversation somewhere in Texas. That's all I'm going to say. And he asked me the same exact question. And I turned to him and I asked him, well, how do you know Bar Kokhba wasn't the Messiah? And lo and behold, he just turned to me and said, well, he was killed by the Romans and he accomplished none of the messianic prophecies. And I just stared at him. I said, so? And he just looked at me with this blank stare. That's exactly the point. Think, Kinderlach. Think very carefully. The reason why the rabbis reject Jesus, it's not because of 2 Corinthians chapter 3 and 4 that we're blind and have scales over our eyes. All this is nonsense. This is all foolishness that Paul has filled I'm talking about Christians, has filled your minds with. This is all nonsense. The reason why Jews don't accept the fantastic claims of Christianity is because none of the prophecies were fulfilled. So, while Bar Kokhba was alive and he captured Yerushalayim, and it didn't go on for 2 weeks or 2 months, it was an extended period of time, that means he had the potential to be the Mashiach. The moment that he was killed by the Romans we knew immediately that he wasn't the Mashiach, and therefore all the rabbis, Rabbi Akiva included, the moment he was killed, immediately knew that he was not the Mashiach, and he was then called not just Bar Kochba, but Bar Chayziva, which means the faker, the fraud. So, of course, while someone's alive, there's the potential that person could be the Mashiach, and if they're doing things that seem to be pointing in that direction, at the moment that they're killed and they fail to fulfill the promises in the Jewish scriptures, we immediately reject it. So the answer to that question is, if someone fulfilled these prophecies, they would be the Mashiach. And if they were killed without fulfilling any of these prophecies, you could be sure that although they claim to be the Mashiach, they are not the Mashiach and they must be rejected. And that's exactly what happened. Rabbis are not operating in some magic woo-woo, nothing at all. The only thing is we use Tanakh as a guide, and so long as the Tanakh is fulfilled, we follow it, and the moment it deviates away from the word of Moshe Rabbeinu alav hashalom, the words of Yeshayahu alav hashalom, Yirmiyahu alav hashalom, Yechezkel alav hashalom, right away we jettison and toss it away, as we did with all these other pretenders. The Tanakh is our measuring rod for everything that's truth, not our feelings, not the Lord spoke to me, he came to me in my room, and I had a conversation with him in the middle of while I was having French fries. Nothing like that. The reason is because Tanakh, that is the foundation. Hashem is our rock. We have no other rock. Zichru Rishonis Ba'olam. Remember the former things that have happened. Isaiah 46, verse 9. Ki anochi el, because I am God. Ve'ein oid Elohim, and there is no other God. Ve'efes kamoini, and there is nothing like me, nothing. No trinities. That's how we know what's true. We follow Tanakh. Thank you, Jared, for your very important question.
Adon olam, asher malach, b'terem kol yetzir nivra,